Do you have any pending materials, or they're all in?
Now the college report thing has to wait for my counselor to fill it out.
Yeah, Lainey? Yeah.
How was your weekend?
It was okay. Yours? Yeah? What did you do?
Spent Valentine's Day with my girlfriend.
Wait, you have a girlfriend? And you guys spend like Valentine's together?
Yeah.
Oh, what do you guys do?
My mother doesn't want to go get cars. So we're going to drive around the Bay Area for cars to be housed. Expensive, probably.
Yeah.
The dopamine rush that a 17-year-old girl loves to get. We're working on scratchers.
Hello? Leo, what's going on? Anything new? You guys know Leah, right?
I started reading Siddhartha.
Oh, you did? There is a version of Siddhartha on Audible. I think it's read by an Indian man. His voice is really nice and it just suits the narrative. Do you have Audible?
I prefer to pirate.
Say again?
I prefer to pirate.
That works too. You like the book?
Yeah, so far I'm enjoying it. I'm not that far into it. At the part where Siddhartha and Govinda meet the samanas and they go find the Buddha.
Oh, okay. Have you reached the part where they run into a woman and they ask if she's ever met the Buddha? Okay, good. Well, maybe we can talk about that a little. Maybe. Hello? So is there anything you guys want to talk about today? Thank you, by the way. I know it's raining and it's cold. And you'd rather be home with your girlfriends and boyfriends, and instead you choose to come here. Feel bad for you. Elham, who are you texting? Is it a man or a woman? So unexciting. No. No. The last time I got flowers for anyone, I think I went to the cemetery and stole some. Say again? That's true. I wonder how I would feel if I was like 6 feet under and my kids just put a bouquet of flowers on the stone and someone named Sebastian would just come by and grab those flowers, and I'd be okay. Speaking about dead people, it's so expensive to bury them. 30, 40,000. For what? I mean, their entire life is not even worth that much. But that's for a different day. So, anything else you guys want to talk about?
Will it ever be explained why Siddhartha was so restless in the book?
There's a man named Hafiz in the Persian poets. ما بدین ره نه پی حشمت و جاه آمده ایم از بد حادثه اینجا به پناه آمده ایم. We don't really know why we're here. It's really just a result of a very tragic set of events. There's a guy who has, of course you know this, he has these 4 paintings. His name is Thomas Cole. And it's called The Voyage of Life. The first painting perhaps would answer your question, which is, you have an infant on this boat, and the boat is just resting on very, very calm water. There's an angel at the front. The infant is naked. Inside the boat, it's lush. The sky is sunny. And the infant is really joyous. You could see just, his excitement or hers. But I think what makes the kid so happy and joyous is the fact that he or she is unable to look behind, themselves, because the boat comes from a very, very dark cave. You don't really know what's inside. And on the top, it's rocky. There is not a sign of life. There is this tree trunk that's broken. And I think that's really the answer to your question, that none of us know why we're here. I mean, unlike all the other animals out there that function mostly instinctually. You wake up, you open your eyes and you say, okay, what am I going to do today? And the idea of just running after food and filling your mouth and pushing what you're eating inside your belly for, 10, 15 hours, it's just not very exciting. You're looking for meaning, purpose, identity, something that brings about inspiration. I think all human beings are condemned. I mean, our good friend there, Jessica, young, attractive, vigorous, restless. In the short few years of her life, she's gone through like 50 boyfriends and 75 girlfriends. I mean, forget, the trauma that lives inside all of us in this class. I mean, that aside, I think you have to kind of sit back and ask, why is it that we get so tired of things so quickly sometimes? That we become saturated, we become bored, the excitement goes away, and you look at life and it has nothing. But that's not the way young people actually function. You just come to class, you keep looking at the clock, even though it's not there. And you hope that it turns to be, 9:45, and so you can be on your way to a different class, and then you go home. As you get a little older, like me, you have more time behind you than ahead of you, which means that you have no choice but to look back and say, man, I used to run faster, eat more, walk more, recover faster, and then you live in this conflict. What happened to me? Why? What did I do with my life, with my time, with my energy? And you walk around with a bitter taste in your mouth. And young people come to your class and you say, well, today I'm going to be very happy. Hello. Wow, look at that jacket. That looks really good. Is it new?
No, it's very old.
You buy it new? That's true. For a young man. Can I give you a few lines of poetry? And let me know if you don't understand what this guy is saying. Maybe I can explain it to you. روزها فکر من این است و همه شب سخنم که چرا فارغ احوال دل خویشتنم. از کجا آمدم آمدنم بهر چه بود به کجا میروم آخر نه نمایی وطنم. مرغ باغ ملکوتم نیم از عالم خاک تو 3 روزی قفسی ساختند از بدنم. It's a poem by Rumi. By the way, thank you for being here. The weather being bad, I know most of you would like to stay home and lay next to your companion and ask why. But restless. You may get your answer also. For those of you coming late, Leah asked, why is it that people come to this class look so restless? That was your question, right? 5,000 years ago in this book called the Epic of Gilgamesh, Ninsan, his mother, goes to the gods and pleads with them. She's like heartbroken. Why have you given me a son whose heart knows no rest? I don't know. I don't know why we are condemned to be forever chasing after things. You have nice nails. Are they real or are they Memorex?
Oh, they're super weird.
They're what?
Like, I grew these overnight. They're super
Okay.
weird.
Please, yes.
I know the vague story of Buddha because my mom practices Buddhism,
Ugh.
but I was wondering how did he come to the name? Like, is that a name that other people gave him and he kind of just went along with it? Or,
About 40 years ago, I was in a bus going from Davis to Sacramento, and I was sitting next to a black man. He looks at me and says, "Are you from the Middle East?" I say, "Yes." "What is your name?" he asks me. So my name is Amir. He says, "Is that your real name? Or you have found your name and that's your name?" I said, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And he says, "Well, I was given this name by my parents, Joe Schmo, and I went through this spiritual quest. And after many, 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 many years," and he was like this 95-year-old beautiful man, says, "I went on a spiritual quest, and Laylatul Qadr opened to me, and this revelation told me that my name should not be like Stu, it should be like Muhammad. I found my name, and so I'm living it." I think metaphorically, it's like you go out with these men and none of them fit, and you keep going out with different ones, and then at the age of 35, 40, 50, you run into someone at a coffee shop or on Tinder or somewhere, you guys meet somewhere, and you look at him and you can kind of feel as if you can see images of yourself inside this man, and you've never met him before. And that's how names are, that it's supposed to be your Sabbath. If you are familiar with the Jewish tradition, all the things I'm saying are really just interpretation, and they're all good. It doesn't matter which one you choose. That you either have to come to a place physically or psychologically, emotionally, where you're just at rest, you're comfortable with who and what you are. And so the name Buddha means someone who just realized a few things. Right now your name is Jessica. Imagine that I am your boyfriend, God forbid, okay? And you assume that your life is really good, we have a great relationship. But you also notice that every night when we come home, that I go to my study and I write in my journal, for about half hour, 40 minutes. And that's the Pandora's box for you. It makes you curious, and that's how we are. I mean, the idea of being restless. Curiosity is just born with you. That's your sibling. And in as much as you try to avoid walking in the study and exercising that curiosity, one morning you just wake up, I'm on a business trip, and you say, I wonder what he writes. It must be like these deep philosophical convictions. And so you keep, nourishing this curiosity until you realize that you're just pregnant with, hello, Oscar. You're pregnant with curiosity put into action. You go into the study, you look through all the drawers, and there it is. Your name is still Jessica. You're restless, curious where you should go, what you should do, how you should spend your day. And then you finally find the journal. And you say to yourself, should I read the last page, the middle one, or should I start from the beginning? And you start from the beginning. Now remember, you and I have been together for 10 years. I love you, and you love me. Every morning you wake up and you say, I love you, and you say, I love you back. Kiss goodbye. Page 1, Janet. Page 2, Lilia. Page 4, Lilith. Page 7, Laila. I don't know why I'm faster with all these L's, but once you get to the page 500, you realize that while being with you, I've also been with other people. You have realized a few things. Your name is no longer Jessica, whatever your last name may be. Your name is now Jessica the Buddha, or maybe the Buddhette. That you've awakened to what this relationship is all about, to who I am, to where you stand. And that's a very difficult place to be. One of the reasons I think why the church condemned Galileo around the 15th century, for many, many thousands of years, you believe that the earth was made for one simple reason: human beings. There is something about us that's beautiful. You have the Spirit of God inside you. Not the cows, not the cats, not the dogs, just human beings. And so everything revolves around the earth. The sun, the stars. Galileo comes forth and says, no, that's not true. The earth is just this tiny little thing. And it's the earth that revolves around the sun. All of a sudden, what happens to your significance? Goes out the window. What happens to your meaning, purpose? That someone out there loves you. And now you begin to doubt, just in case you get an ulcer, you need to be rushed to the emergency room. When you call me, am I going to be around? Or am I going to be Joanna? You don't know. And have I been revolving around this relationship? No. Have I been devoted to you? No. What happens when you come to realize something? It is true, it inspires you. It opens your eyes. You begin to see things very, very clearly. It also burdens you. You begin to kind of ask why you're in this relationship. How do you overcome the habit of coming home and seeing me? How do you deal with anger? Stoicism goes out the window. It's just a stupid philosophy. Once you're touched by the slings and arrows of life, there is no stoicism. In fact, there is no philosophy. You just become raw. All the religious teachings, philosophical teachings, you just trash them. So, that's one of the problems of Christianity. It doesn't allow you to exercise human nature. Judaism, Islam, they do. Just in case there is anger inside you, if someone slaps you and that causes anger, slap him back. No repressed emotions. It's something that Freud came upon late or early 20th century. But all that aside. So here's a guy, Siddhartha. And in Sanskrit, Siddhartha basically means someone who desires fleshy things. Coffee and tables and chairs of life. Nothing wrong with that. It's actually quite nice. Some people are just condemned not to be satisfied, you know. I mean, I don't know, some people remain true to their marriage vows. Only death do us part. I'm not going to suffer any temptation. Nothing. Some people, they really do want to keep their promises, but they just can't. They're far too human. The senses are far too powerful. And there are so many beautiful things out there where you want to touch and taste and all that. So, all of us in this class look for great parents. Siddhartha had great ones. Hello, Matt. You know, all of us look for a beautiful companion. He had one. All of us look, it's all right. It's no problem. All of us look for a great kid. He had one. Money. He had some. Culture, good culture. He came from one. As Leah would say, he was just born restless. Have you ever been dumped, Jessica? Did it feel good? Imagine if one morning you wake up and you realize that life has dumped you. Not just a branch of life, an aisle in life, all of life. Where do you go? What do you do? The first major event that takes place in the life of this kid is, am I young, Jessica? Do you see wrinkles? Do you see a full head of hair? Is my back bent? Does my voice sound tired? Yes. You know what this is called? Old age. Was I once 20? Yes. Was I sitting where you're sitting? Absolutely. Did I think that I'm one day going to look like my ugly professor? No. And I've had many of them. You know, what is this guy doing here teaching this class? He should go to some cemetery, buy himself a lot of land and just dig a grave, you know, with one of those bulldozers you buy from Toys R Us, and then rest in it. Have you ever read this book by Albert Camus? It's called The Plague. A priest comes to realize he just can't understand why people suffer. A priest is a religious man. All the miseries of life are looked at through the lens of religion and religious philosophy. Why do people suffer? He can't find the answer. So you know what he does, Jessica? He goes to the cemetery, puts himself in a hole and dies, commits suicide. Sometimes restlessness can lead to suicide, but of course, I wouldn't recommend that just yet. And that's, you know what your problem is, Jessica? Not that you have one. Our inability to internalize. You're 19? 21. Put yourself in my shoes. I mean, really put yourself in my shoes. I mean, really put yourself in my shoes. Imagine you have graduated. Imagine you have found your, I don't know, a companion of sorts. Imagine you've had your kids, they've all left the house. You have a house, a car. And then you look at your life and you say, WTH. Is it WTH? WTF. With an emoji at the end. Can you internalize that? No, you can't. Because if you could, you would pack your stuff and leave this class. Because it's a waste of your time. And you would leave your relationship. And you realize that you've been orphaned by life itself. You have no one. You have nothing. And that's what happens to old age. time, energy, vitality, hopes, dreams. And you have to be very, very, very unfortunate and very, very unlucky that you see someone who is old, but for some strange reason you are at the right time, right place, or maybe the wrong time, wrong place, where the experience goes inside you and refuses to leave. You wake up with it. I may be 20, but soon I'll be wrinkled. I may be 20, but soon I'll be sick. I'll be 20, but soon I'll be old. What am I doing? And Eric Fromm, forgive me for throwing out all these names and plays and ideas. He wrote this book called Freedom from the Known. What is it called? Yeah, Escape from Freedom. You ever been bored, Jessica? That's the ultimate freedom. But we don't really see it as something that benefits us. But it's a cursed event. I'm bored. And in boredom, you have the freedom to do 1,001 different things. But no. Let's just say your boyfriend tonight dumps you. You're single, you're free. You can date Oscar, Leah, Matt, Ilham. You can date all these people. But no. Anyways, so. Leah, and then Sebastian.
I suppose if wisdom could be measured or compared between Siddhartha and the prodigal son, whose path or whose journey led to more wisdom? And what is the difference between a person who takes the same path as the prodigal son versus the person who takes the same path as Siddhartha? Or is it all the same?
You're talking about the prodigal son in the New Testament?
Yeah, the book of Luke.
Sorry? Luke? One of the things I think that, okay. So in the prodigal son story, for those of you who are interested, again, do not look at this as a religious text. It's just a book that was written by someone, okay? That you have a yes man as a son, and you have a no man as a son. And you have a father who's stuck between these two. And this father has two sons. Son number one, whatever the father says, the son says, okay, Dad, I'll do it. Son number two, whatever the father says, the son says, no. And that's the first lesson that perhaps all of us should learn from in this book, which is human beings are in two different categories. There's a group of people who are yes-mans. Font 12, MLA. And you say, fine, I'll do it, okay? And there is a group of people who are a bit more rebellious. As Khalil Gibran would say, they have this spirit that's always in revolt, They don't really like the status quo, they don't like their parents, they don't like society, they don't like anything. They're just restless from the inside. There is nothing wrong with making mistakes, and there is nothing wrong with having trauma inside you, and there is nothing wrong with being depressed, as long as you're able to reach a point in your life where you stop, you journal everything, then you go back to the first page, you study everything you have written or everything you have done and experienced, all the feelings, all the emotions, all the thoughts, and eventually all the thoughts and feelings and emotions leading to action. And then psychology, which is the cradle of beliefs, and i.e. trauma, okay? If you're able to sit back and open these worlds up, look at them and feel what seeing will bring about, and then think what seeing and feeling will bring about, and then slowly process, then what you have at the end of this journey is a good amount of insight and wisdom. Going back to, if you've gone to AA centers are never guided by someone who's never drank or smoked. It's never guided by someone who's never lost anything. They are usually guided by grief-stricken people who lived an ordinary life, events happened. They didn't have the toolbox to know what to do with them. They took the easiest path, perhaps, maybe at beginning with a good amount of shame and guilt and remorse and repentance. But as you engage in this world a bit more, you realize those emotions go away. So shame and guilt go away, and you drink more and you smoke more. And in that, you feel a sense of liberation, freedom. Or at least you find yourself a bit more free to express how it feels to be you on the inside. There comes a point where nobody likes what you've become. There comes a point where you don't like what you've become. And these are stages you have to go through. And then, you're no longer in the stage of denial. No, I'm not an alcoholic. You categorize yourself, I'm just a social drinker. You realize at a certain point in your life where, you wake up and you puke and your own urine and shit. And you say, I need help. And you stay in the AA center for many, many, many years, if not decades. At a certain point, you have the breakthrough. And no one knows how this happens. And one of the things you need to understand about academia and just life in general, and if you're on a quest to understand anything, and I don't mean like philosophical understanding, I mean why your boyfriend left you, or why your mom died, or why to anything. The answer to any why is a breakthrough. And it matters very little how many books you read, how many people you speak to, how many workshops you attend. It's one of those like aha moments, as they say in the West. And so at a certain point, you, a once alcoholic, you realize that, you just don't want to do this anymore. And you sit back and I suppose you take inventory of your life. Makes you feel bad, but you're not tempted to drink. All you know is that you're just a shitty human being. And it's an experience that you embody very much like what the Buddha embodied some many, many thousands of years ago. I mean, embodying things are not fun. I mean, I can speak about death in this class. Okay? Imagine for a moment if I was just to pass out and just die right in front of your eyes. It's not a thing you read in a book. It's not a thing you watch on YouTube. It's not a gossip you hear from, a fellow student. You actually see it, and my body's shaking. And eventually all the air is out, and I'm dead. And every single one of you in this class, regardless of your religious denomination, you give me a mouth to mouth. No good?
That's not recommended in the CPR guidelines anymore.
Well, I just brushed my teeth. Yeah. Okay, so at least you'll probably just put your hand on my chest. You guys are so unfun.
Slap you a little bit.
Mad. It depends where you slap me. No, that's for a different day. Hello, Tyler. So, and you go through these really, really, there is this Christian saint, beautiful man, Saint John of the Cross, who wrote this book, The Dark Night of the Soul. Your senses, the 5 senses, and all the things you've stored in your memory, they become useless. Nothing you touch makes you feel good. Nothing you think about makes you feel good. Nothing you feel, nothing, just nothing. And your soul is in just nowhere, nothing. And you're sad and depressed. And you have to sit in this depression. If you don't like the writings of The Dark Night of the Soul, check out this other book by some Christian author, The Cloud of Unknowing. All of us in this class want to breed the clouds away, so the sun can come out. And this guy says, no, your salvation is not light, it's darkness. And so what you have in the prodigal son, very much like Siddhartha, is he says, you know what? I tasted what money can do for me. It gave me sex, it gave me a house, a boat, a car, women, men, children, nothing. I have nothing to show for. And then he finds himself in a stable with the cows and the pigs. I mean, that's his church. And at a certain point, he says, you know what? I want to go back home. You know, it's kind of like the story we talked about on Thursday. I remember vaguely how it felt to be innocent, to be creative, but society has stolen those things from me. I want to go back and retrieve those things that were stolen from me. And that's your journey back. But you have to kind of overcome so many different things. The problem with son number A, the yes man, he has a lot of information. He always says yes. Blind obedience. But he never asks why. He never questions. He never gets depressed. He goes to church every Sunday. He pays his taxes. Every time he goes to Safeway, he pays for every item that he buys. He never plagiarizes. He never gets caught. He never cheats. And the truth is, the cheating by itself is not a problem. Getting caught, not by another, but getting caught by yourself. That's beautiful. Because then your agonizing moments will come about. And that's called Jihadul Akbar. Right, Alham? So you have this, inner battle or inner struggle. I talk too much, sorry. All right, take care, man. Does that? I'll tell you one last thing and then we'll go to Sebastian. I had a friend not too long ago, Leah. She was on all these medications for her depression. It was chronic. Then they recommended electric shock therapy. From what little the doctors told me, no one really knows how it works. It works for some people. So, with the knowledge that we had that this person had tried to end her life a few times, and medication and therapy just didn't work. Last option. And the problem with this particular person is that she wrote everything down. And she so desperately tried to make it work with her parents, with her sisters, with her brothers, to be a bit more social, to get married, to find friendships and keep them. Nothing worked. And one of the problems with journaling is that you get a chance to see what lives inside you and what lives outside you. But if you don't have the proper tools to process what you're seeing, you just get stuck, and she got stuck. She just jumped from a bridge not too long ago. Some people are just very unlucky in the sense that they find themselves in the stable and they review their life and they realize they've made a lot of errors. But there is just no father to get back to. There is no home to get back to, and they get stuck and they fall in the state of paralysis. And what little hope they had just goes away. Again, yeah. جام خون دل هر یک به کسی دادن در دایره قسمت اوضاع چنین باشد. It seems that at the moment of birth, joy was given to one group of people and sadness to another. The hands of fate. Abi, hello, how are you? Are you well? It's good to see you. Don't you have chemistry?
I do.
I mean, you don't really have to go if you can somehow I just get an A.
It's 9:41. I probably.
It's okay. I would encourage you to stay, but knowing that how important that class is for you, and you need to pass to get yourself to Oxford and Yale and Stanford and all of them. It's good to see you, Leo. If you need to use my office, let me know. Okay. Bye. Please.
I was thinking, like, we talked a lot about how a lot of philosophers basically come in a religion to come to like the point that basically life is suffering, or something along those lines. But like, what about like ignorance is bliss as a philosophy, or just like deciding to ignore all of like the hardship parts and just do what makes you happy, in a still surviving, still legal kind of sense, but like choosing not to think too deeply about it.
Let me go back, if I may, to the example I gave a few minutes ago about Jessica and I being in a relationship. But I'm going to remove Jessica and put you in there instead. You and I are in a relationship. You love me, Sebastian, and I love you the same, perhaps more. Do you keep a journal? Yes. What do you write in your journal? You with Matt, Oscar, Jessica when she was single, Tyler, and Nathan, doing it in the ambulance. I don't know anything about this stuff. So I'm ignorant about some of your activities or extracurricular activities, right? Am I going to be happy in this relationship? Of course I am. Do you come home and look at me, give me a kiss on the mouth and say, I love you, Amir? Of course you do. Do I do the same thing to you? Of course I do. Not knowing what you've done, is it good for our relationship or bad for our relationship? It's beautiful. Yeah, we're going to sit on the sofa, talk about who's going to get pregnant, right? And since I'm older, my body can't do it, so you got to do it. So, as long as I don't know, I'll continue to hope for a future for you and I. Now, by chance, you have your journal right there in the open, under the mattress. I look at it, read it, and ignorant I am no longer. Is that good for our relationship? So the less you know, of course, and that's true for anything under the sun. Some of it is temperamental too. Some people are just born to be introverts, so they kind of have the tendency of internalizing, and they only gravitate towards those things that make them feel intensely. It's not so much up here, but down here. So, yeah, I think it's true for anything, as long as you don't know. I mean, about 80% of the people in this room, the questions that they submit and the essay that's due this Sunday, it's going to be plagiarized. ChatGPT-F. That's how it is. If I make no notes and do not forward them those notes, they'll continue to assume that, well, I didn't get caught, or he thinks it's me, whatever. But the moment I bring it to their attention, you know what they're going to do? Professor, can I meet you in your office? I need to talk to you. It's urgent. Really? And that's how it is with everything, And, going back to Leo's question and Jessica's about the Buddha, the moment you internalize this fact of life called old age, you can no longer be ignorant of it. And by that I mean, look, all of us in this class have seen people die. There is this man by the name of Fariduddin Attar. Have you heard of him? He's this Persian guy around the 12th century. He has a number of books. One of them is called Mantiq Tayr. It's the 7 journeys or 7 stages that you as a human being have to go through to reach wisdom, insight, truth, God, yourself, however way you want to, however way it works for you. And so in one of the books, there's a story about this grave digger. And the grave digger has a son. And the son one day goes to his father and says, Dad, you've been digging graves for the past 40 years of your life. Can you give me a lesson or a piece of wisdom before you pass? The father looks at him and says, it's interesting. I have been burying people for the past 40, 50, 60 years, but never once have I imagined myself being dead. That all of us see a lot of different things around us. We see poverty, we see educated people but being imbeciles. We see rich people being unhappy and miserable. We see a lot of things around us. And there are moments of reflections, moments of inspiration. That something about you wakes up and says, that's too bad for the guy. But you never embody it, you never internalize it. And the moment you do, it turns into reflection. And that's one of the things about the dangerousness of reflection, that it sticks to you and won't leave you. It's kind of like a traumatic experience. Do you know what trauma is? Maybe you should put this on the board at some point. Because you have to go through stages or steps until an experience is considered traumatic. Yes, Nathan.
Kind of ripping on Sebastian's question. Is curiosity always antithetical to predictability and stability, or is it possible for mind to have meaning?
I'm from the Middle East. We are wired to be extremists. No, jokes and humor aside, I think if you want to be good at anything, even understanding, I think you have to be an extremist. Look, you and I were once married. I don't know if you were married ever, but so you and I marry because of, some unexamined set of ideas and feelings and future and dreams and hopes and all those things. Life gets in. And life begins to kind of push us around and test all the assumptions that we once had. It's your first marriage. You were what we call a virgin in that particular category. Everything about you is honest, naive, pure, sincere. You spent thousands of dollars on the ceremony. Your parents came, your uncles came, your grandparents came, hair people came. You guys sat on the sofa, talked about having children. And little by little, it's like this dam has a tiny little hole, there's a crack, and then the cracks get more, and they get bigger, and then more water seeps through. And you do all sorts of things. You go to, Home Depot and you buy all sorts of different materials to kind of put this dam back together. But there comes a point where, and I don't know who left the marriage, let's just say you did, okay? That there is so much unrest inside you, and there is so much anger and emotions that you can't contain. And you come to realize that, what Aldous Huxley had mentioned many, many centuries ago, so true, that you will never feel so alone as to when you're in a relationship. That you look at your companion and you feel so horribly alone, and it suffocates you. And your house is not big enough, even though you live in a mansion. And then you do something that you never imagined yourself doing, and you become an extremist. She comes home. You know, it's kind of like that scene in the movie Freedom Riders, if you've seen the movie, where the woman comes home. She was teaching at some school, and she spends most of her time there, and his suitcases are packed. He says, I signed up for marriage, but not this kind of marriage where you're never home. And he leaves. And you realize that extremism happens when you are really at your ends with. There isn't much more you can take. It's no different than an alcoholic, And the point I'm trying to make ultimately is, you and I are curious about a lot of things, but curiosity oftentimes gets dismissed by a lot of distraction around us, If you, no, please, yeah. If let's say I come to this class as I do, I say stupid things as I often do, and curiosity is formed inside you. And you write me an email, hey, I like your class, say this, say that. I look at your email and say, well, Nathan is about like 45. He's got a job. He does music. He has friends. Once in a while he drinks a little, maybe smokes a little. That's just too many things for me to deal with. And then once a week email turns to twice a week email. So, that's interesting. But I still realize that, just because you sit and you are able to string words together for 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and shoot me an email, it doesn't really mean anything. Then after class, you come to me and say, can I have your phone number? Maybe I can text you once in a while. I say, sure. And then you text me every single day. And then you text me like once every 3, 4, 5 hours. I did ABCD, and this idea came to mind. Then you say, can I come by and visit you? You started with one email every 2, 3 weeks. And then you forgot. And then it morphed to 2 emails per week. Then it morphed to an email a day. Then 15 texts a day. You're no longer curious. You are, in fact, what we call infatuated. At this point, I say, Nathan, I want you to come to the office. When you're there, I say, we have some people over. Why not come to the house? You're having some dinner, get to meet the family. Don't bring your friends. And don't bring your companion. Come alone. And then when you're there, I have to kind of sit back and watch your body language, where your eyes go, what you ask, how you speak, how often you throw out jokes. Because before giving you any philosophy, I need to make sure that you come from a culture that has taught you how to be modest, how to watch what you say, how you say it, and those things. Once I realized that you have in fact become infatuated, infatuation is something that you can't push out. It lives inside you now. Then we say, okay, now you got to go for the jugular. Now I invite you to the house every single day. And the truth is, by the time you get infatuated, you become somewhat of an extremist. I come to campus around 4, you're outside by the door. A point ultimately is, as long as infatuation remains in its infancy, we can't do much. But if infatuation turns into interest, and then interest turns into infatuation turns into obsession turns into love, then you're in trouble. And that's what you want to do. That's the only way you can suck the marrow out of life. Look, you and I, if we were to speak openly and candidly, I would say the following. When you fall in love, what exactly is it that you want to do? You want to suck the marrow out of this relationship. You don't want to be away from this companion for even a minute. And when you guys are physically engaged, i.e. having sex, it's not just ordinary sex. It's not just casual sex, like two bodies grinding with one another. It's like your mind, body, and soul are unified, and her body, mind, and soul are unified. If, of course, she feels the same way about you as you do about her. And then you have magic, and it's like you map her body, and you are able to sacrifice your own pleasure, so that she could gain as much pleasure as we can possibly give her. And you become the Lamb of God, really, And it only happens when love makes you an extremist. By the time you get to the place of infatuation, you're no longer in power. You're no longer in control of anything. And when Sebastian asks about a lot of philosophers, the only, I suppose, objection I would have, or flaw I would say that contains in his language is, you have a lot of comfortable philosophers. And you don't have to be an academician to be a philosopher, because education is relatively new for our people, maybe 100 years old. It was a private endeavor for the longest time, Oxford, Yale, Princeton. You had to be very rich and needed to have a good amount of connection. It wasn't public, really. So, sometimes someone manipulates your curiosity to morph it into infatuation. And sometimes you just do it by yourself through your own imaginative, creative works. But curiosity by itself doesn't mean anything. Doesn't create conflict, except maybe just, a second here and there. But if any of these ideas or concepts that we talk about in class, you feel like they don't really apply to you, my recommendation is take from these ideas what you can and put them in your own life, in an experience that you had. Custom make it according to your own tradition. And you'll find them valuable. Extremism, speaking of it abstractly, no. If you were to inject it in your divorce experience, it makes sense. You can't be curious and divorce, it doesn't work. You may be married, you may like another person other than your wife. The moment you go home with the picture of this other person in your head, and the more you grow uneasy being in your own home, we are instinctual animals, man. You love sex. But once the image of this other person occupies your soul, you can't have sex with your wife. It doesn't work. And you have to really summon up a good amount of energy. It's like you're cheating on yourself, and you hate yourself afterwards. So, anyways. Elham? Anything?
I mean, just the session, I noticed that anyone has a question about love and business.
Yes.
Kind of have unbelievable.
I think there are stages you go through. Right now, and maybe it's something we should talk about on Thursday, you love your father and you love your mother. And the idea of leaving them just doesn't exist for you. You're going to get married soon. I hope that this man who enters your life will be a relatively decent human being. And because in your tradition, having boyfriends or doing naughty things is not really permissible, you're going to give 110% of who and what you are in your marriage. And because you suffer from a poverty, you have never experienced romantic love, Familial love, loving your parents, you have. You're rich in that area. But romantic love, you're not. Let's say that the man who enters your life, he'll be mature, he'll be decent. He'll take out the garbage. Unlike me, he'll buy you flowers on Valentine's, takes you out for dinner, doesn't scream, is not physically abusive, doesn't impose his opinions, on you, respectful. And more importantly, he's respectful in bed with you. Okay? As you spend more time with this man and less with your family, your love for your husband grows. It doesn't mean that you'll stop loving your parents, but now there's a different scale now. Your parents are here, your husband is here. There comes a point where this scale goes down and balances out with the love you have for your parents. Okay? We're not going to talk about your parents getting sick and you spending more time at your parents' house than you have your dad now, okay? Leaving your husband at home with frozen food from Trader Joe's. Let's say everything is fine, but then you get pregnant. And you realize something really, really interesting. Your parents left their own parents to take care of you guys. Your love for your children will overpower your love for your husband and your love for your parents. Now, it doesn't mean you won't love him, but just not as much. There comes a point where you get to be, say, Abi's age or my age. Your parents are, your children are now 18, 19, 20, 25. And given the fact that you guys get married young and have children much earlier than the Western folks, by the time you're like 30, your kids are 17, 18, 19. Okay? You take a look at your life. And this is not Yemen. You're in school. And this is the age of technology, which means that the innocence that someone in Yemen has, you're no longer going to have because you're exposed to different things now. At a certain point in your life, you're going to look yourself in the mirror and you say, man, I used to be 18, I sat in this class, had this lousy teacher, got married, had kids, raised them. I'm now like 45. What the hell did I do with my life? Now you become a feminist. And you realize that you have given your life to your parents, to your husband, to your kids. And the person that you forgot was you. And all of a sudden you remember. Like remember the Titans? You remember that there is Elham. You've attended to everyone except Elham. And your husband comes to you and says, and now you're preoccupied with this. What the hell do I do with myself now? I have like another 20 good years left. Should I write a book? Should I read a book? Should I go to a workshop? What should I do? Should I go back to school and become a doctor or a surgeon or this or that? And your husband comes home and he looks at you and says, Elham, I love you. And you really do try to find meaning in those statements, I love you. But you can't. And you want to say it back in a way that you mean it, but it doesn't come out that way. It doesn't mean that you don't have the capacity to love. It just means that you have outgrown one stage and you have entered another one. That's all. Remember this conversation we had today. When you get to be 50, I'll be long dead. I bought myself a land on Sunrise Cemetery, Sunrise and Greenback. Come visit me. Put a bouquet on the tombstone. And say, Amir, yeah, you were right. I'm 60 now. See you then, Alham. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Anyone else? Sophia. Sophia. Martin. Until it fizzles out? Yeah, absolutely. My only recommendation is walk into any love relationship with you having more power. So when you leave, you're not like completely broken. You're like cracked. It's much better for the other person to be broken than you. Because eventually that's what's going to happen. I'm not trying to make it like pessimistic or gloomy, but yeah. And be a man. Never show your feelings. I'm just kidding. Sophia. Tyler. Abi.
So when we write, we seem to have ideals that we project into words that don't come out in the speech and give us what we put into our act. Right.
You have 2 kids. I don't know if your children are at a stage where they're using profanities. Are they? Really? Oh, you got good kids. My kids, I go home and it's like every other word. And it's actually fun for them. They don't really understand what they're saying, but just saying fuck, and shit, it like giggles them for an hour, and my wife and I scream at them, but to no avail. It doesn't work. It's funny for them and good for them. And what you realize is that, we stand at different stages in life. For them, it's something they just learned. For us, there's a good amount of fear and dangerousness to those words, especially when you use them at that age. There comes a point where let me just do it this way. It's kind of like a 7-Eleven way of doing this, cheap and superficial and easy. You're driving down the road and there's a sunset. And you say, fuck. And there is nothing profane about it. The truth is, the only way you can express how beautiful the scene is not saying, wow, that's beautiful. You say, fuck. I mean, it has elements of awe, mystery. It's majestic, it's divine. And there is no other way to express it. And then what you do is you realize that there are some people who don't really have that experience, so you sit and you write it. But in trying to write down, and the title of your book is fuck, and then in tiny print, the mystery of the sunset. But the only thing that people can see is the F-U-C-K, right? And underneath, author, Abi, the Indian. And you realize you've spent the next 300 pages talking about how little beauty lives in life, how the politics of life steal your sense of curiosity and awe and wonder. And then you try to explain why. This is a book about fuck, sunset, mystery, awe. And now you're delving into social politics, capitalism, technology. And then you say, my husband and I got into a fight. We were going to San Francisco. Eventually we did. He didn't talk to me. I didn't talk to him. He didn't look at me. I didn't look at him. Now you delve into the difficulties of relationships. On the drive back, ocean to your left, forest to your right, the sun setting, and the colors. And it's kind of like Jesus Christ coming down, bringing all things together in a very harmonious, beautiful way. But in order for you to write this, it's going to take you 30, 40, 50 years of writing, going back, revising, removing a lot of BS, adding stuff that are, have some substance. And then you get to a different stage. You're now 75, you see the sunset and the rainbow and the snow all together. And you say, fuck, fuck, fuck. And your companion asks, did he say something? No. And you realize you have no need to express, to be seen, to be visible. You're actually your own container. I mean, you live a very, hermetic life at this stage. I think we have different needs at different stages. You get to a place where you say, I want to, and one of the nice things about writing, especially if you have children, you should write for your kids. That when I die, hopefully my kids will be mature enough to kind of, look at this book and say, well, I wonder what my mom had to say about whatever. And then you get to a point where you realize that you don't want to write anything down, because what writing does is it freezes your thoughts and your growth. And someone may pick up your book and say, it's Heidegger? He was a fascist. And that gets frozen in time, but the truth is it changed. Some people are like Socrates. They don't write because they've come to realize that nothing valuable in life can be fit into language. And there is only one way to teach. I can't teach you anything. I say, so Abi, how are you doing today? I'm good. What does that mean? And I keep harassing you, asking you, like a really good judo instructor. I realize that every word that comes out of your mouth has a certain power to it, but you don't really know what power it has. I take that and I push it back into your face and I ask for clarification. Two things can happen. You either walk away from the class saying my instructor was a jerk, or you go home realizing that you just don't know what you're talking about, but that's a horrifying place to be, so you kind of distract yourself, or it sticks with you. And then you try to clarify initially in your own thoughts, what exactly is it that you're saying? How do you want to say what you want to say? Can the other person understand? And ultimately what Socrates comes to realize, the only thing that you can do is to be a naqshbandi, a designer, which means that the only book worth writing, the pages that live inside the human heart. If I can find that, if I can erase everything you have written on it, if I can begin to write on that, that's the book you will never forget. And that's the book worth reading. But that's the best I can do right now. I would go into Hinduism, but we don't have time. What time is it anyways? 15?
Unfortunately, you have 1 minute. You probably have like 30 seconds. Go.
That's a lot of pressure now.
Time's up.
Anyone else with anything?
Why is that cup so boring?
Boring?
Yeah, you normally have those pretty cups. Irritating.
When I was 20, I had this wife. She was so exciting. But she was crazy, man. It's too much. Then I found a wife who was boring. Been married for like 30 years now.
How many wives have you had?
7.
7?
I'm restless.
You did me for 1.
You've been married 6 times? Well, hell in this life and afterlife. You're in a good place, Oscar. Well, it's good to see all of you. Stay dry, stay warm. Take good care. It's good to see you, Leah. Assalamu alaikum, Alham. Sophia.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you.
I'll see you
Take care.
Thursday.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Martin, I got you. You're fine.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Leah, how are you? What happened to your chemistry?